I never thought I'd be standing outside my childhood home again, staring at the familiar oak door that once welcomed me with warmth. But here I was, 5 years later, my heart pounding against my ribcage like it was trying to escape. My husband Marcus squeezed my hand gently, his presence beside me the only thing keeping me grounded. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered, his dark eyes filled with concern. I wasn't sure about anything anymore, but I nodded anyway. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks ago, a simple cream-colored card with gold lettering. "You are cordially invited to celebrate Richard Morrison's 65th birthday." My father's name looked so formal, so distant on that expensive cardstock. There was no personal note, no handwritten message, just my name and address printed in elegant script. My mother must have sent it. She was the only one who knew where I lived now, the only one who had bothered to keep that thin thread of connection alive through occasional text messages and holiday cards. "Let's get this over with," I said, reaching for the doorbell. Before my finger could press it, the door swung open. My younger sister Emma stood there, and for a moment, neither of us moved. She looked different, more polished than I remembered. Her blonde hair styled in perfect waves, her makeup flawless. But her eyes, those same blue eyes we'd inherited from our mother, widened in genuine shock. "Sarah?" she breathed. "You actually came." "I was invited," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. The awkwardness hung between us like a physical barrier. 5 years ago, Emma had been my best friend, my confidant, the person who knew all my secrets. Now she was a stranger wearing a familiar face. She glanced at Marcus, and I watched her eyes widen further as she took in his tailored suit, the expensive watch on his wrist, the unmistakable air of success that surrounded him. "And this is my husband Marcus," I said, allowing a small smile. "Marcus, this is my sister Emma." Marcus extended his hand with the easy confidence that had first attracted me to him. "Pleasure to meet you, Emma. Sarah has told me so much about you." Emma shook his hand, looking bewildered. "Husband? Sarah? You're married? Since when?" 3 years now," I replied. The hurt flashed across her face, and I felt a pang of guilt, but she hadn't been there. None of them had been there when I needed them most. "Mom didn't tell us," Emma said quietly. "She just said she'd invited you." "I didn't think you'd actually show up." "Neither did I admitted. "But here we are." Emma stepped aside, letting us into the foyer. The house smelled exactly as I remembered, a mixture of my mother's favorite vanilla candles and my father's expensive cologne. The walls were still painted that warm cream color, still decorated with family photos. I noticed that the pictures of me had been moved, relegated to the far corner where they were barely visible. The prominent spots now featured Emma, my younger brother Daniel, and various extended family members. "Everyone's in the living room," Emma said, leading us down the hallway. "Sarah, I should warn you. Dad doesn't know you're coming." Mom didn't tell him. My stomach dropped. "What?" "She thought it would be better as a surprise," Emma said, her voice apologetic. "You know how Dad is. If he'd known, he would have told her to uninvite you." Marcus's hand found mine again, his thumb rubbing soothing circles on my palm. "We can leave," he murmured. "You don't have to do this, but I did. I needed to do this." For 5 years, I'd carried the weight of my family's rejection. The memory of that terrible night when my father had looked me in the eye and told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I needed to show them that I hadn't just survived without them. I had thrived. "No," I said firmly. "We're staying." Emma bit her lip, looking torn. "Sarah, there's something else you should know. Dad's been telling everyone that you—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "That I what?" I pressed. "That you chose money over family. That you abandoned us for a richer life." Emma's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "He's been painting this picture of you as this gold digger who ran off with the first wealthy man who showed you attention." The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd suspected as much. My father had never understood my choices, never tried to see things from my perspective. To him, I was simply the rebellious daughter who refused to follow the path he'd laid out for me. "Let him think what he wants," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "The truth has a way of coming out." We reached the entrance to the living room, and I could hear the chatter of voices, the clink of glasses, the warm laughter of people enjoying themselves. Emma said, her hand on my arm. "I missed you," she said suddenly, her eyes glistening. "I know things are complicated, but I missed you." "Sarah." Before I could respond to Emma's confession, my mother appeared in the doorway. Catherine Morrison was still the picture of elegance, her silver-streaked brown hair swept up in a classic chignon, wearing a navy dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. But when she saw me, really saw me standing there, her composed expression cracked. "Sarah," she whispered, and suddenly she was rushing forward, pulling me into an embrace that smelled of Chanel No. 5 and memories. "My baby girl, you came." I stiffened at first, the old wounds still too fresh, but then I allowed myself to sink into her arms. Whatever our differences, she was still my mother. "Hi, Mom," I managed, my voice thick with emotion. She pulled back, holding me at arm's length, her eyes scanning my face as if memorizing every detail. Then she noticed Marcus, and her expression shifted to one of polite curiosity mixed with surprise. "And you must be the mysterious husband Catherine's been hiding from us," she said, extending her hand. "Marcus Chun, Mrs. Morrison," he said smoothly. "Thank you for inviting us. Please, call me Catherine," she said, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was taking in every detail, the cut of his suit, the confidence in his posture, trying to reconcile whatever narrative my father had created with the reality standing before her. "Mom, we should probably," Emma started, but it was too late. "Catherine?" "Who's at the door?" My father's voice boomed from inside the living room. "Bring them in! Everyone's waiting to toast." My mother's face went pale. "Richard, wait," but he was already walking toward us, a glass of scotch in hand, his face flushed from alcohol and good cheer. Richard Morrison was a big man, not fat but solid, with iron gray hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention. He built his construction company from nothing, and he never let anyone forget it. He was wearing his favorite navy blazer, the one he wore to every special occasion, and his smile was wide as he approached the doorway. Then he saw me. The smile vanished. The glass in his hand trembled slightly, and for a moment, I thought he might drop it. The jovial expression on his face transformed into something cold and hard. The look I remembered so well from that night 5 years ago when I told him I was leaving. "What is she doing here?" he said, his voice low and dangerous. He wasn't talking to me. He wouldn't even look at me directly. "Richard, please," my mother said, her voice pleading. "It's your birthday." You thought wrong," he cut her off, finally turning his gaze to me. The contempt in his eyes was like a physical slap. "I told you, Catherine. I told you she was dead to this family. Why would you disrespect me like this on my own birthday?" The words hung in the air, sharp and cruel. Dead to this family. I'd heard them before, but hearing them again in front of Marcus, in front of everyone who was now gathering in the doorway to see what the commotion was about, made them cut deeper. "Dad," Emma tried, but he held up his hand. "Don't," he said sharply. "Don't defend her. She made her choice 5 years ago when she walked out that door against my wishes." I found my voice, though it shook slightly. "I came because Mom invited me. I came because despite everything, you're still my father. And I wanted to wish you a happy birthday." He laughed, a bitter sound that held no humor. "My daughter? You stopped being my daughter the day you decided your own selfish desires were more important than this family. The day you threw away everything I'd built for you, every opportunity I'd given you, to chase after God knows what." "Richard, that's enough," my mother said, her voice firmer now. "Whatever happened between you two, she's still your daughter. She's still my child. Is she?" He took a step closer, and I could smell the scotch on his breath, because the daughter I raised wouldn't have abandoned her family, wouldn't have cut off all contact for 5 years, wouldn't have chosen money over blood. "Money?" I repeated, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play innocent with me," he sneered. "We all know why you left. We all know you went running off to find someone who could give you a better life than the one I provided. Well, congratulations. I hope whatever you found was worth it." Marcus stepped forward then, his presence suddenly commanding despite his silence until now. "Mr. Morrison," he said, his voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." My father turned to him, really looking at him for the first time. I watched as his expression shifted, taking in Marcus's obvious wealth, the confidence that came from years of success. "And who are you supposed to be?" "I'm Marcus Chen, Sarah's husband," he said evenly. "And I think you owe your daughter an apology." The living room had gone completely silent now. I could see faces peering around the doorway, relatives and friends I hadn't seen in years, all watching this family drama unfold like it was a television show. My father's face reddened. "You come into my house and tell me what I owe my own daughter? I come into your house, Marcus replied, his voice still maddeningly calm, as your daughter's husband. And yes, I'm telling you that you're wrong about her. About everything. Richard, please. My mother tried again, but he ignored her. I don't know what lies she's told you, my father said, pointing at me without looking at me. But that girl destroyed this family. She walked away from a good life, from opportunities most people would kill for, because she thought she knew better than everyone else. No, I said, my voice stronger now. The anger that had been simmering beneath my fear was starting to boil over. I walked away because you tried to control every aspect of my life. Because you couldn't accept that I might want something different than what you wanted for me. My father's eyes finally met mine, and the fury in them was palpable. Control? I gave you everything. I paid for your education, gave you a position in the company, had your whole future mapped out, and you threw it back in my face. You mean you planned my entire life without ever asking me what I wanted? I shot back, years of suppressed anger finally breaking free. You decided I would major in business, work in your company, marry Brandon. Don't you dare speak his name, my father interrupted, his voice rising. That boy loved you. His family was good to us. It was a perfect match, and you destroyed it. Perfect for who? I demanded. For you? So you could merge your companies and expand your empire? Brandon and I were wrong for each other, and you know it. Or you would know it if you'd ever bothered to ask me how I felt. My brother Daniel appeared behind my father, looking uncomfortable. He'd grown up, filled out, no longer the gangly teenager I remembered. Dad, maybe we should take this somewhere private, he suggested. But my father was on a roll now, the scotch and his anger making him reckless. You want to know what I think? I think you were too proud to admit you'd made a mistake, too stubborn to come back and apologize. So you found yourself some rich husband to prove you didn't need us. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. Mr. Morrison, I met Sarah 3 years ago in a coffee shop. She was working 2 jobs, putting herself through graduate school, and didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. She had no idea who I was or what I did for a living. In fact, it took her 3 months to even agree to go on a date with me because she was so focused on her studies. My father scoffed. A likely story. It's the truth, I said. I left here with nothing, Dad. Nothing but my undergraduate degree and my determination to make it on my own. I worked as a barista during the day and a waitress at night. I lived in a studio apartment that was barely bigger than your walk-in closet. And you know what? I was happy. Because for the first time in my life, I was living on my own terms. Happy? My father repeated mockingly. You were happy being a waitress? After everything I gave you? I was happy being free. I corrected him. Free from your expectations, your control, your constant disappointment in me because I wasn't the perfect daughter you wanted me to be. My mother had tears streaming down her face now. Sarah, honey, we never meant. Yes, you did, I said, but my voice was gentler when I addressed her. Maybe not you, Mom, but Dad did. He made it perfectly clear that if I didn't follow his plan, I wasn't welcome here anymore. Those were his exact words. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. Well, I walked out and I didn't come back. Until today. So why are you here now? My father asked coldly. To rub your success in our faces. To show off your rich husband? I'm here, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. Because despite everything, part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, you'd be happy to see me. That maybe 5 years would have been enough time for you to realize that your daughter's happiness should matter more than your pride. The silence that followed was deafening. My father stared at me, his expression unreadable, while everyone else in the room seemed to hold their breath. Then my Uncle Frank, my father's brother, stepped forward from the crowd. Richard, he said quietly, maybe the girl has a point. My father rounded on him. Stay out of this, Frank. Can't do that, brother, Frank said, moving to stand beside me. I watched you push this girl away 5 years ago because she wouldn't fit into your perfect little box. And I kept my mouth shut because it wasn't my place. But dead to the family? That's too far, Richard. Even for you. You don't understand, my father said. But there was less conviction in his voice now. Don't I? Frank countered. I remember when we were young, when Dad tried to force you into his accounting firm. You fought him tooth and nail because you wanted to build things, not count beans. You left home, started your own company, did things your way. Sound familiar? My father's face paled. That's different. How? Frank pressed. How is it different? Because Sarah's your daughter instead of your son? Because she didn't want to go into construction, or because she had the audacity to choose her own path. "Frank, that's enough," my father said, but his voice had lost its thunder. "No, it's not enough," Frank continued. "For 5 years, you've been telling anyone who'd listen that Sarah abandoned the family for money. But standing here, looking at her, it's pretty clear that's not what happened. You pushed her away, Richard. And you're too damn proud to admit it." Marcus, who had been quietly observing this exchange, spoke up again. "Mr. Morrison, may I share something with you? When Sarah and I got married, she made me promise 2 things. 1, that I would never use my money to try to influence or control her decisions. And 2, that when the time came to reconnect with her family, I would let her take the lead, no matter how much I wanted to intervene." He paused, looking at me with such love and pride that I felt tears prick my eyes. "Your daughter is one of the strongest, most independent people I've ever met. She finished her master's degree while working 2 jobs. She built her career from the ground up, without anyone's help. And she did it all while carrying the pain of being estranged from her family. The only thing I've given her is love and support. Everything else she earned herself." "What do you do?" my mother asked Marcus suddenly, her voice curious. Marcus hesitated, glancing at me. I nodded, giving him permission. "I'm the CEO of Chen Technologies," he said simply. The room erupted in whispers. Chen Technologies was one of the largest tech companies in the country, a name everyone knew. I watched as the realization dawned on my father's face, the shock replacing the anger. My father's face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, confusion, and finally, a flicker of something that might have been regret. "Chen Technologies," he repeated slowly. "The Chen Technologies. There's only one," Marcus said with a slight smile. "Though I wish there were more competition. It would keep us on our toes." Daniel, my brother, let out a low whistle. "Holy shit," he muttered, then quickly added, "Sorry, Mom." Emma's eyes were wide as saucers. "Sarah, you married Marcus Chun? The Marcus Chun? And you didn't tell anyone?" "You didn't give me the chance," I replied. But there was no anger in my voice anymore, just exhaustion. And besides, it wouldn't have mattered. Marcus's success isn't why I married him. I married him because he's kind, because he listens to me, because he supports my dreams even when they're different from his own. He's everything. I stopped myself before I could say, "You're not." But everyone heard it anyway. My father seemed to have shrunk somehow, the bluster and anger deflating like a balloon. He moved to the nearest chair and sat down heavily, his birthday party forgotten. "Catherine," he said quietly, "get me another drink." "Richard, maybe you've had enough," my mother started. "Get me another drink," he repeated, and she hurried off. Uncle Frank pulled up a chair beside him. "You're seeing it now, aren't you?" he said softly. "How wrong you've been." My father didn't answer, just stared at his hands. I'd never seen him look so small. "Mr. Morrison," Marcus said, his voice gentler now, "I understand that this is a shock, but I want you to know that Sarah never wanted your money. In fact, when I proposed to her, she almost said no because she was worried about what people would think. She was worried about exactly this, that people would assume she was with me for my wealth." "What changed her mind?" my mother asked, returning with the drink but setting it on the table rather than handing it to my father. Marcus smiled, the kind of smile that had made me fall in love with him. "I told her that anyone who really knew her would know the truth. That the people who mattered would see her for who she really was, brilliant, ambitious, fiercely independent, and absolutely terrible at accepting help from anyone. Despite everything, I felt myself smile. I'm not that bad. Darling, you refused to let me buy you a winter coat when yours had holes in it because you said you could make it work," Marcus said with a laugh. "Yes, you are that bad." A few people in the room chuckled and some of the tension dissipated. But my father remained silent, staring at nothing. "Richard," my mother said softly, kneeling beside his chair. "Say something, please." He looked up at her, and I was shocked to see his eyes were wet. "What do you want me to say, Catherine?" "That I was wrong? That I drove away our daughter because I was too stubborn to let her make her own choices?" "That would be a start," she said gently. He turned to look at me then, really look at me, for the first time since I'd arrived. "You look good," he said, his voice rough. "Happy. I am happy," I replied honestly. "But I would have been happier if you'd been part of my life these past 5 years. Would you?" he asked. "Would you really? Or would I have just kept trying to control you? Kept pushing you toward what I thought was right?" It was a fair question, one I'd asked myself many times. I don't know, I admitted. But I wish we'd had the chance to find out. He nodded slowly, then looked at Marcus. You love her? More than anything, Marcus said without hesitation. You treat her right? Give her everything she needs? I give her everything she let me give her, Marcus said with a wry smile. Which, as I mentioned, isn't much. She's remarkably stubborn about maintaining her independence. She gets that from me, my father said, and there might have been the tiniest hint of pride in his voice. I know, Marcus replied. She's told me stories about how you built your company from nothing, how you refused to give up even when everyone said you'd fail. She admires that about you, you know. Even when she's angry at you, she admires your determination. My father's eyes found mine again. Is that true? I nodded, my throat tight. You taught me to stand up for what I believe in, Dad. To not let anyone tell me I couldn't do something. You taught me to be strong. I wish you'd been proud of me for using those lessons. Even when it meant going against what you wanted, the silence stretched between us, heavy with years of hurt and misunderstanding. Then Emma, bless her, broke it. So, she said with forced brightness, does anyone else think it's weird that we're having this massive family drama? In the foyer, while there's a perfectly good birthday party going to waste in there. Several people laughed and my mother stood up, brushing off her dress. Emma's right. Richard, it's your birthday. Whatever else needs to be said, it can wait. Everyone's here to celebrate you. My father stood up slowly, and for a moment, I thought he might ask us to leave. But instead, he straightened his shoulders, adjusted his blazer, and turned to Marcus. You said your name was Chen? Yes, sir. Chinese? My grandparents immigrated from Taiwan, Marcus confirmed. My father nodded thoughtfully. Catherine's been after me to expand internationally. Maybe you could tell me about the Asian markets over dinner sometime. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even an acknowledgement of everything that had been said. But it was an olive branch, tentative and awkward, and it was more than I'd expected. I'd be happy to, Marcus said smoothly. Sarah's been wanting to visit Taiwan. Actually, see where my family came from. My father nodded again, then did something that shocked me to my core. He looked directly at me and said, you could come too. If you wanted, both of you could come to dinner. I mean, not Taiwan. Unless, he trailed off, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional territory he was navigating. We'd like that, I said softly. Dinner, I mean, we'd like that very much. My mother's face lit up with hope, and she quickly moved to my father's side. Wednesday, she suggested. Wednesday evenings are usually free for us. Sarah has her yoga class on Wednesdays, Marcus said, demonstrating once again that he paid attention to even the smallest details of my life. But she could move it, right, darling? Thursday would be better, I countered, wanting to maintain some boundaries. If that works for you both. Thursday's perfect, my mother said quickly, before my father could object. 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock, I agreed. The awkwardness hung in the air for another moment before Uncle Frank clapped his hands together. Well, now that that's settled, can we please get back to the party? I've been eyeing that prime rib in there for the past 20 minutes. People laughed and began filtering back into the living room. Emma grabbed my arm, pulling me aside while Marcus was engaged in conversation with Daniel about something tech-related. Sarah, she whispered urgently, I have so much to tell you. So much has happened. Can we talk? Really talk? Maybe lunch this week? I looked at my sister, seeing both the teenager I'd left behind and the woman she'd become. I'd like that, I said honestly. I've missed you too, Em. She hugged me tight, and this time I didn't stiffen. I'm sorry, she whispered in my ear. I should have stood up for you. I should have stayed in touch. I was just scared. Dad was so angry and I didn't know what to do. You were 18, I reminded her. You were still living at home. I never expected you to choose sides. But I should have, she insisted. You're my sister. That should have mattered more. I pulled back, looking at her tear-stained face. We're talking now. That's what matters. She nodded, wiping her eyes carefully to avoid smudging her mascara. Okay, lunch Tuesday. There's this new place downtown that Tuesday's great. I agreed. Text me the details? She nodded eagerly, then glanced toward the living room where our mother was trying to salvage the party atmosphere. I should go help Mom, but Sarah? I'm really glad you're here. Even with all the drama, I'm really glad. As Emma walked away, I felt Marcus's arm slip around my waist. How are you holding up? He murmured. I'm okay, I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. Better than I expected, actually. Your father's not quite what I imagined, Marcus admitted. From your stories, I expected someone colder, but he seems more hurt than anything else. Hurt and stubborn, I corrected. A dangerous combination. Like someone else I know, he teased gently. I elbowed him lightly. I'm not stubborn. I'm determined. Of course, darling. My mistake. We joined the party, and I was immediately surrounded by relatives I hadn't seen in years. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, pulled me into a crushing hug. Sarah Morrison. Or is it Sarah Chen now? Sarah Chun, I confirmed, though I kept Morrison as my middle name. Smart girl, she said approvingly. Never forget where you came from, even when where you're going is much more exciting. Now you must tell me everything. Your mother has been so secretive about you. We all thought something terrible had happened. As I talked with various relatives, I noticed my father watching me from across the room. He wasn't actively participating in conversations, just observing, his expression unreadable. Every so often, my mother would lean in and whisper something to him, and he'd nod, but his eyes never left me for long. It was unsettling and comforting all at once. Daniel eventually made his way over, bringing Marcus with him. Okay, so I have to ask, Daniel said, grinning at me. How did you two actually meet? Because the coffee shop story sounds suspiciously like a romantic comedy setup. I laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd had all evening. It does, doesn't it? But it's true. I was working at this little coffee shop near campus, and Marcus came in every morning for his cappuccino. Every morning for 2 months, Marcus added. And every morning, Sarah would make my drink, take my money, and completely ignore the fact that I was trying to flirt with her. I wasn't ignoring it, I protested. I was just focused on my work. She was terrified of me, Marcus said with a grin. I was not terrified. I was cautious. There's a difference. Daniel looked between us, amused. So what changed? One morning, I came in and she wasn't there, Marcus said, his tone becoming more serious. I asked the other barista where Sarah was, and she told me Sarah had been up all night studying for an exam and had gotten sick from exhaustion. I was concerned. He showed up at my apartment with soup, I said softly, remembering that day. I still don't know how he got my address. I have my ways, Marcus said mysteriously, then added, actually, I may have bribed your coworker with a very generous tip. $50 for my address, I told Daniel. Can you believe that? For the record, it was worth every penny, Marcus said, though Sarah made me leave the soup on the doorstep and wouldn't let me in. Because I looked like death and my apartment was a disaster, I explained, but he left his number with the soup. And after I'd recovered and cleaned my apartment, I called him. 3 days later, Marcus added. Longest 3 days of my life. Daniel shook his head, smiling. That's actually kind of sweet. In a stalkerish sort of way. Hey, Marcus protested. He's not wrong, I said with a laugh. We talked and laughed, and for a while it felt like no time had passed at all. Daniel told me about his work at Dad's company, how he was slowly taking on more responsibility. He'd gotten engaged 6 months ago to a woman named Rachel, who he introduced me to a few minutes later. She was lovely, warm and friendly, and didn't seem at all put off by the family drama she'd witnessed. As the evening wore on, my mother orchestrated the birthday cake ceremony with the efficiency of a seasoned general. The lights dimmed, and everyone gathered around as she wheeled out an elaborate 3-tiered cake, decorated with golf clubs and construction equipment. My father's 2 passions besides his family. Make a wish, Dad? Emma called out as we all began singing. I joined in, my voice shaky at first but growing stronger. Marcus's hand found mine in the darkness, giving it a reassuring squeeze. When the song ended and my father blew out the candles, everyone cheered. But when the lights came back on, I caught him looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Speech, speech. Uncle Frank called out, and others joined in. My father held up his hand for silence. My stomach twisted with anxiety. This could go either way. He could use this moment to heal, or he could use it to hurt me one final time in front of everyone. 65 years, he began, his voice carrying across the room. When you reach my age, you start thinking about legacy. About what you're leaving behind. He paused, looking around at all the faces watching him. I built a successful company. I have a beautiful home, a wonderful wife, 3 children who, he trailed off, his eyes finding mine, who are all remarkable in their own ways. My mother touched his arm encouragingly. I'm not good at apologies, he continued, his voice rougher now. Anyone who knows me knows that. I'm stubborn, I'm controlling, and I think I know what's best for everyone. My brother Frank would probably say I'm an arrogant son of a... He caught himself glancing at my mother. Well, you get the idea. A few people chuckled nervously. 5 years ago, I told my daughter Sarah that if she walked out my door, she shouldn't come back. His voice cracked slightly. And she walked out. And I told myself it was her loss. That she'd made her choice and she'd have to live with it. The room was absolutely silent now. Even the servers had stopped what they were doing. But the truth is, my father said, his eyes locked on mine, it was my loss. I lost 5 years of my daughter's life. I missed her finishing graduate school. I missed meeting her husband. I missed everything because I was too proud to admit that maybe she had the right to make her own choices. Even if they weren't the choices I would have made for her. Tears were streaming down my face now. And I didn't bother to wipe them away. Sarah, he said, addressing me directly for the first time. I can't take back what I said 5 years ago. I can't give you back the time we lost. But I can tell you here, in front of everyone who matters to us, that I was wrong. I was wrong to give you that ultimatum. I was wrong to cut you out of my life. And I was wrong to say you were dead to this family. He paused, his own eyes glistening. You're not dead to this family. You never were. You've always been my daughter, even when I was too stubborn and too proud to admit how much it hurt that you were gone. My mother was crying openly now. And so was Emma. Even Daniel looked suspiciously misty-eyed. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, my father continued. Lord knows I don't deserve it. But I'm asking, and I'm not a man who asks for things often. I'm asking if we could start over. Not pretend the past 5 years didn't happen. But start building something new from where we are now. He extended his hand toward me, not in a handshake, but in an offering, an invitation. I looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. Then I looked at my mother, whose face was a mixture of hope and fear. At Emma, who was clutching Daniel's arm. At Uncle Frank, who gave me a subtle thumbs up. Then I looked back at my father. This man who had shaped so much of who I was, for better and worse. This man who had pushed me away but who was now finally asking me to come back. I crossed the room, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea. When I reached him, I didn't take his hand. Instead, I stepped forward and hugged him. Really hugged him for the first time in 5 years. For a moment, he stood stiff and uncertain. Then his arms came around me, holding me tight, and I felt his shoulders shake with silent sobs. I'm sorry, he whispered into my hair. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I know, Dad, I whispered back. I know. When we finally pulled apart, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. My mother rushed over, wrapping both of us in her arms. And then Emma and Daniel joined in, creating a family huddle that had been 5 years in the making. When we finally broke apart, my father wiped his eyes roughly with his handkerchief. Well, he said, his voice gruff with emotion. That was sufficiently embarrassing. Can we please eat some cake now? Everyone laughed, the tension finally breaking completely, and the party resumed with a warmth and joy that had been missing before. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations, laughter, and reconnections. Marcus fit in seamlessly, discussing business with my father and uncles, charming my mother and aunts, and even engaging in a spirited debate with Daniel about the future of artificial intelligence in construction. I found myself standing by the window at one point, watching him across the room, and marveling at how different this night had turned out from what I'd expected. I'd come here prepared for rejection, for more hurt, for confirmation that the past 5 years of separation had been irreversible. Instead, I'd found hope. He's good for you, a voice said beside me. I turned to find my father standing there, also watching Marcus. Your husband. He's good for you. He is, I agreed softly. I meant what I said, my father continued, his voice low so others wouldn't hear. About starting over, about being wrong. I know, but I need you to understand something, Sarah. He finally looked at me, and I saw genuine anguish in his eyes. When you left, it wasn't just about you defying me. It was about me failing you. I started to protest, but he held up his hand. Let me finish, please. I nodded. I built everything I have from nothing, he said. I worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed time with your mother, with you kids, all to create something stable, something secure. I wanted you all to have the opportunities I never had. And in my mind, I'd created this perfect path for you. Education, position in the company, a good marriage to someone from a family we knew and trusted. He paused, staring out the window at the darkness beyond. But what I didn't realize, what I refused to see, was that in planning out your life so carefully, I was making the same mistake my father made with me. I was treating you like a chess piece instead of a person. And when you refused to be moved according to my strategy, I took it as a personal betrayal instead of what it actually was. Which was? I prompted gently. A young woman brave enough to choose her own path, even when it meant walking away from everything comfortable and familiar. He looked at me again, and this time I saw pride mixed with the regret. You're more like me than I ever wanted to admit. That same stubborn independence, that same refusal to let anyone else define your worth or your future. I should have recognized it, should have celebrated it. Instead, I tried to crush it. Dad! No, let me say this. His voice was urgent now. I told myself that if you crawled back, apologized, admitted you'd been wrong, then maybe I'd consider letting you back into the family. But you didn't crawl back. You thrived. You built your own life, found your own success, married a man who clearly adores you, and you did it all without me. Without any of us. He swallowed hard. And that's when I realized the truth. You didn't need me to succeed. You never did. And that terrified me, because if you didn't need me, what was my purpose as your father? What had all those years of planning and worrying and trying to protect you been for, if you could just go out and create a better life on your own? Dad, I said, my voice thick with emotion, I may not have needed you to succeed, but I wanted you there. There's a difference. Every milestone, every achievement, every moment of happiness I've had these past 5 years, there was always this empty space where you should have been. Where all of you should have been. His eyes filled with tears again. Really? Really, I confirmed. Success doesn't mean as much when you can't share it with the people who helped shape you. And whether you believe it or not, you did help shape me. Your determination, your work ethic, your belief that with enough effort anything is possible, I carried all of that with me. I still do. He pulled me into another hug, briefer this time but no less meaningful. Your mother kept me updated, he admitted. She'd tell me little things. That you'd finished your master's. That you were working hard. That you seemed happy. I pretended not to care, but I hung on every word. She never told me that. I made her promise not to. Told her it would be interfering, that you'd made your choice and we needed to respect it. But really, I was just too proud to admit how much I missed you. We stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the party continue around us. Then my father spoke again. Marcus seems like a good man. Successful, obviously, but there's more to him than that. He looks at you like you're the only person in the room. He's the best man I've ever known, I said simply. Better than your old man? There was a hint of his old humor in the question. Different from my old man, I corrected with a smile. You both have your strengths, he chuckled. Diplomatic answer. Then his expression turned serious again. I want to know everything, Sarah. I want to hear about graduate school, about how you and Marcus built your life together, about your work. I want to know my daughter again. That's going to take more than one Thursday dinner, I pointed out. Then we'll have a lot of Thursday dinners, he said firmly. As many as it takes. I've wasted 5 years. I don't intend to waste any more time. Marcus approached us then, and I could tell from his expression that he'd been monitoring the situation from across the room, ready to intervene if needed. Everything okay over here? He asked. Everything's good, my father said, extending his hand to Marcus. I wanted to thank you properly. For taking care of my daughter. For making her happy. Marcus shook his hand firmly. She takes care of herself, sir. I'm just lucky enough to be along for the ride. My father smiled. A real smile. Still, thank you. And I meant what I said about dinner, Thursday 7 o'clock. We have a lot to discuss. We'll be there, Marcus promised. As my father walked away to rejoin the party, Marcus pulled me close. How are you really doing? He asked softly. Honestly, I'm exhausted, I admitted. Emotionally drained, but also lighter somehow. Like I've been carrying this weight for 5 years and I finally got to put it down. I'm proud of you, he said, kissing my forehead. I know how hard this was for you. I couldn't have done it without you here. Yes, you could have, he said with certainty. But I'm glad you didn't have to. As the party began to wind down, Emma cornered me in the hallway outside the bathroom. Okay, spill, she demanded. I need to know everything. How you met Marcus, where you've been living, what you've been doing, and I mean everything. I laughed at her enthusiasm. That's going to take more than a hallway conversation. Which is why we're having lunch on Tuesday, remember? She grabbed my hands. Sarah, I can't believe you're really here. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and it will have been a dream. I know the feeling, I admitted. Are you really okay with all of this? She asked, her expression turning serious. With Dad, I mean. I know he apologized, but 5 years is a long time. A lot of hurt. I'm not sure okay is the right word, I said thoughtfully. But I'm willing to try. We all are. That's what matters, right? The trying? Emma nodded, then bit her lip. I have something to confess. I've been following you on social media, not in a creepy way, she added quickly. I wanted to know you were all right. That you were happy. Why didn't you reach out? I asked, trying not to feel hurt. I wanted to, so many times. But Dad made us all promise we wouldn't. He said it would undermine his authority. That if we maintained contact with you, we'd be choosing sides. She looked down at our joined hands. I was a coward, Sarah. I chose the easy path. And I'm sorry. You were stuck in an impossible situation, I said, squeezing her hands. I don't blame you, Em. I never did. But you should. She insisted. I should have been braver. Daniel, too. We should have stood up to Dad. Should have told him he was being unreasonable. You were kids, I reminded her. And even now, standing up to Dad isn't exactly easy. You did it. And look where it got me, I said with a wry smile. 5 years of separation. But you were right, Emma said fiercely. You were right to choose your own path. You were right to stand up for yourself. And look at you now, successful, happy, married to an amazing man. You didn't need any of us. But I wanted you, I said, echoing what I'd told my father. There's a difference between not needing something and not wanting it. I wanted my family, Em. I wanted my sister. We hugged then, both of us crying again. When we pulled apart, Emma was smiling through her tears. Tuesday can't come soon enough. I have 5 years of sister talk to catch up on. Me too, I agreed. Me too. As the night finally came to an end, my parents walked us to the door. My mother pulled me aside one last time. Thank you for coming, she said softly. Thank you for giving us another chance. Thank you for inviting me, I replied. For not giving up on me. Never, she said firmly. You're my daughter. I could never give up on you, no matter what your father said. She glanced at where my father was talking with Marcus. He's different tonight. I haven't seen him this open in years. You did that. We did that, I corrected. All of us together. She hugged me tightly. Thursday dinner. But I'm calling you before then. And I expect you to answer. I will, Mom. I promise. My father shook Marcus's hand again, man to man. And there was a new respect in his eyes. Then he turned to me, and for a moment we just looked at each other. Drive safe, he said finally. We will, and Sarah? He hesitated, then pushed forward. I love you. I should have said it more when you were growing up. Should have said it 5 years ago instead of giving you ultimatums. But I'm saying it now. I love you, and I'm proud of you. I felt the tears coming again, but this time they were different, healing tears. I love you too, Dad. He pulled me into one last hug, and I heard him whisper, Welcome home, Princess. It was what he used to call me when I was little, before I grew up and started having my own opinions. Hearing it now, after all these years, broke something open inside me. As Marcus and I drove away from the house, I watched it disappear in the rearview mirror. But this time, the distance didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. You're quiet, Marcus observed, reaching over to take my hand. Just processing, I said. Tonight was a lot. It was, he agreed. Are you okay? I think so, I said slowly. I think I'm more than okay, actually. For the first time in 5 years, I feel like I can breathe fully. Like I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until just now. Your father surprised me, Marcus admitted. When he gave that speech, when he apologized, that took real courage. It did, I agreed. Apologizing has never been his strong suit. He must have really meant it. He did, Marcus said with certainty. I was watching him all night. Every time he looked at you, I could see the regret. The love. He's missed you, Sarah. They all have. I miss them too, I whispered. Even when I was angry, even when it hurt. I missed them. We drove in comfortable silence for a while, the city lights blurring past the windows. Then Marcus spoke again. You know what this means, right? What? Thursday dinners with the in-laws, family holidays, Sunday brunches. You're going to have to share your weekends with them now. I laughed, the sound surprising me with its lightness. Is that a complaint? Never, he said, bringing my hand to his lips and kissing it gently. I get to see you surrounded by people who love you. People who are finally recognizing what I've known all along, that you're absolutely extraordinary. How could I complain about that? You're going to make me cry again, I warned. I'll allow it, he said with a grin. You've earned some happy tears tonight. As we pulled into our driveway, our beautiful home that we built together, I felt the last piece of tension release from my shoulders. I had my family back, but I also had my own life, my own choices, my own love. I didn't have to choose anymore. I could have both. Hey, Marcus said as we got out of the car. Happy birthday to your dad, but also congratulations to you. For what? For being brave enough to face your past. For being strong enough to forgive. For being you. He pulled me close, his arms warm and secure around me. I'm proud of you, Mrs. Chun. I'm proud of me too, I said, and realized I meant it. It's been a long journey, but I think I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. Where's that? He asked. I looked up at him, then back at the house, then thought about my family waiting for Thursday dinner. About Emma and our lunch date. About all the possibilities opening up before us. Home, I said simply. I'm finally home. All the way home. And as we walked into our house together, hand in hand, I knew that it was true. I'd found my way back to my family without losing myself. I'd built a life without them and would now rebuild our relationships with the wisdom and strength I'd gained from that independence. The girl who had walked out 5 years ago wasn't the same woman who had walked back in tonight, and that was okay. That was more than okay. That was exactly how it should be. Because sometimes, you have to lose your family to truly find yourself. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to find both.